Welcome from Roots to Fruit. As a Canadian Christian Orthodox homeschooling mother that also works, many challenges arise. Come with me as I explore these issues, all of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's go on a journey together from roots to fruit.
As previously mentioned, workplaces have many problems with many moving parts. It is difficult to determine how it all began, who is to blame, what is happening, and what will happen next. Furthermore, it seems as though these issues are also evolving, so it's hard to keep track or even to keep up with. In response to this mess, there have been many buzzwords to describe the shift that has been taking place in the workplace. Certain situations that are not new are now being described using these new trendy buzzwords, which only adds to the confusion, and in turn, each generation views these buzzwords differently. Some of these buzzwords include quietly quitting, loud quitting, quiet cutting, rage applying, garbage jobs, ghost jobs, coffee badging, and so much more. If we take the term quietly quitting, for example, this term may be new, but all this really is work to rule, or simply just doing your job without being taken advantage of. But I can understand where the confusion lies, since each generation views the same situation differently. Boomers tend to go above and beyond, but within reason. They don't view the extra work hours as being taken advantage of, since they got something out of it. Generation X are willing to go above and beyond as long as it's during the work hours and they're not being taken advantage of. If they feel like they are, they won't do it. However, many young employees started to quietly quit in the last few years after the term became trendy. The younger generation feels as though this means just doing your job, nothing more. However, they have been accused of taking this term to mean not working by the older employees. As previously mentioned, the work ethic of the younger generation is already lacking, so when they reduce their work even more, I can clearly see why the older generations feel like they're not working. However, the younger generation can't see this since the work ethic is not on the same level, and they don't understand that they're not producing as much. In addition to these terms, there has been another phenomenon that has occurred. Generation X experienced something interesting, something that is typically not found in history and something that I haven't heard any previous generation experience, and that is being overlooked for jobs when they were next in line for. You see, when the boomers started to retire, Gen X thought they would be next in line. They worked really hard, they earned their place, and wanted to move up. For a short time, they were. Then something strange happened to Gen X. The boomers were replaced by fresh out of school millennials instead of experienced Gen Xers that worked hard for those same positions. This caused a massive problem. All of a sudden, management started to be filled with inexperienced individuals that didn't earn their titles. They kept disregarding anyone with experience and were told that the reason to hire young employees were for a fresh take on that role. In reality, we kept seeing the same mistakes be made over and over again with no progress whatsoever. The younger employees ignored what was done before, thereby causing them to repeat the same errors of the past instead of learning from those with the lived experience. I believe this comes from the arrogance that is developed with having a higher education. This drove Gen X to burn out. This also created resentment, animosity, and overall a lower of morale. We also saw an increase in monitoring, micromanaging of employees, which demonstrated distrust and lack of respect for the employee, which also meant a lack of respect for the management. Workplaces have become toxic with narcissistic management that kept gaslighting and disregarding experienced individuals. Let's not forget that corporate culture has turned into a playground filled with employees who act like children instead of working. All of this is happening, and management expects not only the same production, but an increase in work from us. But how is that possible with fewer employees working and more playtime? What ended up happening was that a lot of work fell on Gen X, including managerial tasks. Without acknowledgement or compensation for these additional duties, Gen X became fed up, so they started to do just their job, nothing more. Since the problem wasn't corrected, this is where you start to see a decline in production, so upper management started to push even more. This major shift started about 10 years ago, but there was no trendy words and it didn't go viral. Not many people were talking about it, but lots of people did notice these issues surfacing. They noticed the change in service, production, efficiencies, and even attitudes. All of a sudden, a simple task became difficult and frustrations increased. This also affected the general population. For example, if you wanted to make a simple appointment somewhere, it used to be easy. You picked up the phone, gave the info, and done. Now, it usually takes a few phone calls to get a hold of someone. You may leave a message that most likely no one will listen to, Days can pass and you have no idea if they even heard your message since there's no acknowledgement of it. Then, when you get a hold of them, and if you bring this up, they get annoyed. They often state they feel swamped with work, even if you often catch them on their cell phones instead of working. Then it takes longer to collect the info. Then, if you're lucky, they may not ask you the same questions over and over again as if they never asked you. If you're brave enough to mention any of this to them, then it's usually met with attitude and hostility or blank stare. This is just one example. We all have our stories of how it has become increasingly difficult to deal with others, or things are not being done on time, or not being done right, and etc. The breaking point, in my opinion, was when the lockdowns happened. Generation X, like many others, decided to change their lives. Many Gen Xers were tired and burnt out from all of this, and even more were fed up with how they've been treated. So many started to pay less attention to the faceless, heartless corporations. It went from just doing their jobs to not caring about production as much or as well. After all, what's the point? They gave a lot and kept getting screwed over. They also started to give much more attention to family life. Some left the cities, others changed jobs to work from home, others started their own businesses, and so much more. We were told to work hard, to go to post-secondary, to get a good job, and it'll all be good. We thought our hard work would be paid off, but it didn't. We worked hard, really hard, gained experience, and others got the jobs, the respect, the acknowledgement, the credit, even the compensation. So, we did something about it. We changed our lives. We adapted, but the corporate world did not. Since the boomers were mostly retired and Gen X are not producing the same level or leaving the jobs completely, the work started to fall in the younger generations for the first time. And so, this is when their version of quietly quitting started. They started to do less than before and expect more from the employer. Another issue is that boomers and Gen X were more loyal to the company and understood that you need to stay at the same job for a while in order to build your experience, knowledge, seniority, and even vacation time. The younger generation views anyone who stays at the same job for more than a year as stagnant. However, bouncing around doesn't give you enough time to gain experience, and it doesn't even give you enough time to understand what was done before. This situation is so common that there are so many young people who are willing to quit their jobs and just go on vacation. This also demonstrates how easy it is for them to obtain jobs. Unfortunately, this also teaches no responsibility and you can't grow. It is worth noting that when someone discusses such issues, they get accused of ageism. This is a great way to shut down a conversation. And why is that? Well, because if we don't address it, then it will continue. You see, the mentality of the workplace has shifted so much that they prefer to hire such individuals instead of experienced employees, mostly due to nepotism and overvaluing social interactions. To put it another way, it is more important these days to have employees who don't question management. This makes it easy for upper management to do whatever they want and for management to execute it without any questions. Also, pay less in wages and benefits. This is a very important point, and it explains how it leads to corporations being able to get away with a lot of inappropriate, unethical, and even illegal behavior. In the last 10 years, there has been an explosion of a toxic workplace environment. Many people have tried to come forward. At first, they were told that they were the ones that caused the problem. This is now so widespread that it is no longer hidden, and people are starting to realize that they're not alone. Yet still, employees are being treated like ants in a colony, and if you get out of line, then you're punished. All the games, social events are distractions on a way to fool the employees into thinking the company cares about their well-being. But for a corporation, the corporate family will always come first, even above your real family. Those of us who've spoken out against this have been bullied, harassed, discriminated against, fired, shamed, and etc. Most management is now filled with narcissistic individuals that will gaslight you. And if you go to HR, then right there, they'll start a case against you. This all sounds drastic and dramatic, but unfortunately, it's the reality right now. And only recently have people been talking about it. The people going through this either feel alone or don't know where to turn. Others have left jobs never to look back. Others are ignoring the problem completely. Others are brushing it off because it doesn't affect them. Well, not yet. And others are the ones doing it, so they won't speak out until they start to experience it for themselves. And they eventually will, even if they think they won't. Honestly, none of this should be a surprise. We raise this generation this way, and then put them in charge. What else could the result be? I've discussed multiple issues in this episode and want to make it clear that these issues are complex. I really don't believe that one generation started it or that one person started it. This is something that happened over time and from many angles. My explanation is definitely an oversimplification, but these are my experiences and of many around me. Either way, most people recognize something is wrong. No matter what generation you're from, it is all a big mess that cannot be sustained. It will collapse. I believe if we want to correct these problems, we should start with an honest discussion. Then we should put people with experience in charge again. We also should stop acting like children and should start acting like adults with responsibility, to care about society, families, and each other, to bring back traditional morals, ethics, and values, to be the bee, to pray for God's help and for one another, to help each other, to stand beside those that are willing to stand up, and for professionals to help out as well, such as those that are supposed to protect us from illegal acts. Also, it would be nice if professionals didn't ask for unreasonable, expensive fees just to uphold the law, or when we become sick from such toxic places, that the medical community steps up and helps instead of asking us for more fees and invasive documents. Jobs are a big part of our lives, and we should be helping each other instead of hiding in our spaces praying that it doesn't reach you. We don't have to like what they do to us, but we don't have to be mean or rude about it or just shut people down. We've been given free will to do something about it. Sorry for the rant in this episode, but I believe we need to be more honest about the workplace situation. Thank you for your time.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your time. If you want to know more about me and my podcast, please visit me at my website for more information at fromrootstofruit.podbean.com. May you be blessed from roots to fruit.